Work permit. Hazard recognition and controls. At the end of this course, you will be able to recognize common work site hazards and related controls when issuing or receiving work permits based on the information in General Instruction 2.100. To be able to recognize hazards and controls, you will correctly, and without help, identify practices, hazards and conditions that can lead to an incident. List methods to recognize and control hazards. Recognize common Saudi Aramco workplace hazards and associated controls. Identify practices, hazards and conditions that can lead to an incident. What is a hazard? A hazard is anything that can cause harm to people, environment, assets, business. What is safety? One definition of safety is freedom from risk or harm, loss or injury. Is it possible to do something 100% safely? Driving, flying an aircraft, scuba diving, crossing the street, working in an oil and gas plant. To help you prevent injuries and illnesses, Saudi Aramco has many programs, processes, procedures and standards in place to protect you. Examples: safety standards, employee evaluation, training programs, safety courses, hazard recognition, gas testing, etc., safety orientations, observation processes, job safety analysis, joint site inspection, hazard analysis checklist, reporting processes, injury reporting, incident investigation, unsafe acts. Safety hazards and unsafe acts include operating equipment without authority or certification, failure to warn, failure to secure, operating at an improper speed, making safety device inoperable, removing safety devices, using defective equipment and poor maintenance, using equipment improperly. The loss prevention policy reminds you that you are responsible to know your safety responsibilities, identify and eliminate hazards prior to starting a job, take safety courses, follow all safety procedures, standards, and rules. Be prepared to respond to emergencies. Report incidents to help others avoid them in the future. Safety hazards. In the workplace, an unsafe act is a task or a job done in a way that may threaten the health and/or the safety of workers. Knocking on a valve with a wrench to open it is an example of an unsafe act. Performing a job without the required certification, or not having a required work permit is also an unsafe act. Taking shortcuts, trying to accomplish work in a hurry or to try to save time. Why do people continue to take shortcuts on the job? Human nature to want to complete a task as quickly as possible. The demands of the job or the organization causing employees to act unsafely. The employee tries to impress the boss with their level of production. They are in a rush to get the job done. If you are in a rush, you may run through a safety checklist without actually stopping to evaluate each item properly. The hand and eye are checking off the boxes on the checklist, but the brain is not engaged or focused on the task. Checklists are not foolproof. They may not have checkbox for every possible variation or situations or for all safety hazard. Checklists and procedures can only work if they are followed and completed properly and with all your attention. We know that hazards exist in all that we do, so to avoid incidents and injuries, we make sure that all appropriate barriers are in place. There are usually two types of barriers. Equipment. All our facilities have barriers to incident and injuries such as fixed gas detectors, emergency shutdown valves, emergency alerts, sensors, helmets, harnesses and much more. Human. The second barrier relies on people, in other words, you. Humans are the front line of defense in normal operations and the last line of defense during non-normal operations. Both situations rely on the human to avoid incident. How to recognize and control hazards. In this part you will learn about categories of hazards, recognizing hazards, controlling hazards. Remember, the purpose of hazard recognition. It is to find hazards and put in place controls and precautions to eliminate or reduce the hazards to an acceptable level before they cause an incident. Common causes of incidents in Saudi Aramco. Failure to follow rules and procedures. Hazards are not recognized or controlled. Equipment is not properly isolated, powered off or depressurized. Gas testing not performed or monitored. No effective joint site inspection. Improper response when conditions change. Types of hazards. There are two main categories of hazards that have the potential to cause harm to people, the environment, assets, and our business. Safety hazards. Health hazards. Safety hazards. A safety hazard is anything that can have an adverse impact on your safety. Examples: electrical, power lines, transformers, static charges, lightning, energized equipment, wiring, and batteries. Gravity, crane lifting operations, excavation, falling object, collapsing roof, and a body tripping or falling. Mechanical, rotating shafts, belts, pulleys, saw blades. Motion, vehicle, vessel, or equipment movement, flowing water, wind, and body positioning when lifting, straining, or bending. Pressure, pressure piping, compressed cylinders, control lines, vessels, tanks, hoses, and pneumatic and hydraulic equipment. Health hazards. A health hazard is anything that can have an adverse impact on your health. Health hazards examples: biological, animals, bacteria, viruses, insects, blood-borne pathogens, improperly handled food, and contaminated water. Chemical, dust, fumes, gases, mists, vapors, liquids, hydrocarbons, solvents, lead. Radiation, lighting issues, welding arcs, solar rays, microwaves, lasers, X-rays, and norm scale. Noise and vibration. Equipment noise, impact noise, vibration, high-pressure release, and the impact of noise to communication. Temperature. Open flame, sparks, hot or cold surfaces, liquids or gases, steam, friction, and general environmental and weather conditions. Methods to identify hazards in the work permit process are: joint site inspection, work permit system and forms, hazard analysis checklist. You will be able to complete work permit forms properly during the joint site inspection for activities in construction, maintenance, inspection, repair. On permit forms, you must identify and control hazards in the following sections. Section 2, Hazard Identification and Control. Hazard Analysis Checklist. What is a control measure? Steps that you are going to take to remove or reduce a hazard by. Engineering. Eliminate, change solvent paint to water-based paint. Isolate, noise enclosure, LOTO, blinding. Administrative. Reduce, rotate crew, use warnings. Rules, policies, procedures. Protective equipment. PPE. RPE, respiratory protective equipment, such as SCBA and SABA.